In October of 1942, within the bustling confines of General Motors' Inland Division in Dayton, Ohio, George Hyde, a 52-year-old German immigrant, found himself contemplating a set of specifications that appeared utterly unattainable. The Thompson submachine gun, an iconic emblem of American military might, commanded a staggering price of $200 per unit at the time, and some equivalent to more than $10,000 in contemporary currency. This exorbitant cost represented over 4 months' wages for an average American soldier. With the United States preparing to deploy millions of troops across 2 vast theaters of war, the financial implications were stark and uncompromising. At such a prohibitive cost, the nation simply lacked the fiscal capacity to adequately equip its own fighting forces. Colonel René Studler's directive was unequivocal yet daunting: to engineer a submachine gun that mirrored the performance capabilities of the Thompson, but at a dramatic reduction of 90% in cost. Hyde was afforded a mere 7 months, a tight window before American military units were slated to launch their invasions of Sicily and Italy, operations that would demand a vast arsenal of weapons, far exceeding the current production capabilities of factories. Hyde's initial prototype, designated the T-15, initially showed considerable promise until its presentation at the rigorous Aberdeen Proving Ground. "It looks like something that fell off the assembly line at a Buick plant," an ordnance officer disdainfully remarked, his tone laced with scorn. "Where's the craftsmanship? Where's the woodstock?" The military, despite its urgent plea for an inexpensive weapon, still harbored an expectation that it should possess the conventional appearance of a genuine firearm. What they ultimately received, however, would later be labeled the most aesthetically unappealing weapon in American military annals. Nevertheless, amidst the treacherous mud of the Italian battlefields and the unforgiving frozen landscapes of the Korean War, soldiers would come to grasp a profound and often devastating truth concerning the intrinsic connection between a weapon's outward beauty and its fundamental role in ensuring survival. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The dawn of October 15, 1942, found George Hyde meticulously bent over his drafting table, illuminated by the stark fluorescent lights of the engineering bay at General Motors' Inland Division in Dayton, Ohio. At 52 years of age, this German-born immigrant had dedicated 2 decades of his professional life to the intricate art of firearm design. Yet, nothing in his extensive experience had truly prepared him for the contents of the unassuming manila folder that Colonel René Studler had placed before him just 3 days prior. The specifications contained within seemed to articulate a mathematical impossibility, artfully concealed within layers of bureaucratic lexicon. The Thompson M19028A1 submachine gun, a weapon that had become indelibly linked with American martial prowess, from the tumultuous streets of Chicago to the remote, contested beaches of Guadalcanal, bore a price tag that caused even the most seasoned Pentagon accountants to flinch. A single unit commanded $200 in 1939. Hyde had meticulously recalculated the figures on numerous occasions, half hoping that his pencil had somehow erred. An astounding $10,500 in contemporary purchasing power, a sum equivalent to more than 4 months of base compensation for a private first class. Even the streamlined M1 Thompson, hastily pushed into production following the attack on Pearl Harbor, still incurred a cost of $70, representing a negligible improvement when weighed against the monumental scale and exigencies of a global conflict. The financial arithmetic was unforgiving and undeniable. The United States faced the immense logistical challenge of arming millions of service members for concurrent military operations across both the European and Pacific theaters. At a unit cost of $200, outfitting merely 1 million soldiers would necessitate an expenditure of $200 million, a figure representing nearly 10% of the entire defense budget, even before factoring in the substantial costs associated with ammunition, training protocols, and complex logistics. The Treasury Department had articulated its position with unwavering clarity. The Thompson submachine gun was, quite simply, pricing itself out of contention for inclusion in American military arsenals. Studler's assignment resonated within Hyde's mind with the intensity of a direct challenge to the fundamental laws of physics to conceive and develop a submachine gun that could replicate the formidable performance characteristics of a Thompson, yet achieve this feat at a staggering 90% reduction in manufacturing cost. The design parameters were stringent. It required an all-metal construction, chambered for 45 caliber ACP ammunition with a cyclic rate of fire below 500 rounds per minute, and an accuracy standard of 90% at 50 yards, meaning that 9 out of every 10 shots had to impact within a 6x6-foot target area. Most critically, the weapon absolutely had to be mass-producible using established automotive manufacturing techniques, demanding minimal traditional machining, a requirement that elicited outright laughter from conventional gun manufacturers and considerable apprehension from automotive engineers unaccustomed to such precision in their high-volume processes. The imposed timeline proved to be even more relentless than the already demanding technical specifications. A mere 7 months. Hyde was allotted precisely 30 weeks before American forces would require enormous quantities of submachine guns for the anticipated invasions of Sicily and Italy. Intelligence assessments indicated that German and Italian defensive forces were diligently fortifying their positions, which would inevitably necessitate extensive close-quarters combat. Each passing day that American industrial facilities failed to churn out sufficient quantities of affordable submachine guns represented another potential scenario where GIs might confront entrenched enemy forces armed with prohibitively expensive weaponry that existed more as line items in procurement ledgers than as tangible assets in soldiers' eager hands. Hyde's initial strategic impulse was to capitalize on his team's recent, groundbreaking experience with unconventional manufacturing processes. The General Motors Inland Division had, just prior, successfully navigated one of the war's most audacious production challenges: the fabrication of 1 million single-shot Liberator pistols intended for covert distribution to European resistance fighters. These rudimentary yet effective weapons had been constructed almost entirely from stamped metal components, utilizing standard automotive press tools and spot welding techniques. The logical conclusion was compelling. If they possessed the capability to mass-produce pistols with the efficiency of automotive parts, then perhaps the very same principles could be adeptly scaled to the more complex manufacture of submachine guns. The nascent prototype, formally designated the T-15, emerged from Hyde's meticulous drawing board as a profoundly radical departure from established, traditional weapon construction methodologies. In stark contrast to the Thompson, which boasted meticulously machined steel components and elegantly polished walnut furniture, The T-15 was comprised of stamped and welded steel sheets, skillfully formed into a package that was undeniably functional but possessed a distinctly utilitarian aesthetic. A sliding wire stock was ingeniously designed to telescope, adjusting its overall length from 8 inches down to a more compact 8 inches. The receiver section, in its raw form, bore a striking resemblance to two automotive fender sections that had been joined together by welding, which, in a functional sense, was precisely what it was. Preliminary evaluations conducted at GM's dedicated proving range yielded encouraging results. The T-15 demonstrated consistent accuracy, cycled ammunition with commendable reliability, and could be swiftly disassembled for routine cleaning in less than 30 seconds. Most importantly, initial cost projections indicated a manufacturing price comfortably under $25 per unit, precisely meeting the demanding 90% cost reduction that Colonel Studler had specified. Hyde permitted himself a fleeting moment of guarded optimism as he finalized preparations for the official presentation to the formidable Aberdeen Proving Ground. The journey to Aberdeen in November was freighted with the immense symbolic weight of American manufacturing prowess and military innovation. Hyde keenly understood that his prototype represented far more than mere economic savings. It embodied a fundamental existential question regarding the very identity of the American military. Would the Army wholeheartedly embrace radical efficiency and innovative design, or would ingrained institutional conservatism stubbornly insist that weapons conform to the traditional, aesthetically pleasing instruments of war, irrespective of crucial practical considerations and wartime exigencies? The answer arrived with unsparing swiftness and a brutal finality. The ordnance officers at Aberdeen handled the T-15 with expressions that barely masked their profound disdain, their initial curiosity rapidly devolving into palpable disappointment and ultimately outright rejection. "It looks like something that fell off the assembly line at a Buick plant," observed Major William Harrison, Aberdeen's chief small arms evaluator, his voice dripping with condescension. "Where's the craftsmanship? Where's the woodstock? This thing looks more like a garage tool than a weapon of war." The institutional predilection extended far beyond mere surface appeal. For numerous decades, the prevailing American military ethos had intrinsically linked the perceived quality of a weapon to its traditional, artisanal execution. Components meticulously machined from steel, wooden elements precisely fitted, and surfaces burnished to a sheen, all indicative of painstaking manual refinement. The iconic silhouette of the Thompson, distinguished by its voluminous drum magazine and the Thompson Auto Ordnance Company's exacting standards of manufacturing, had become inextricably woven into the very fabric of American military identity. Consequently, a generation of officers who had bravely wielded Thompsons amidst the harrowing trenches of France during the Great War viewed Hyde's innovative, stamped metal creation as nothing short of an affront to cherished military heritage and established arms-making tradition. Hyde observed with dismay as months of his dedicated labor were summarily dismissed within mere minutes of a cursory inspection. Although the Army had explicitly stipulated a requirement for cost-effective manufacturing techniques, their subsequent reaction laid bare a profound inconsistency at the core of military acquisition processes. They desired significant reductions in production expenses, yet simultaneously demanded no compromise whatsoever in the visual presentation of the firearm. While the T-15's operational capabilities meticulously fulfilled every technical specification, its unadorned aesthetic starkly contravened unspoken, deeply ingrained assumptions regarding the appropriate appearance of American military armaments. The return journey to Dayton unfolded through the chill of a November evening, punctuated by disquieting reports filtering in from the battlefronts of North Africa, detailing persistent reliability issues with the Thompson in the abrasive desert sands, and the oppressive humidity of the jungle. A profound sense of irony intensified Hyde's disappointment as he gradually comprehended that the aesthetically pleasing firearm was already faltering precisely when its performance was most critical, while the senior echelons of the Army remained stubbornly preoccupied with safeguarding its visual legacy. Each day that production lines struggled to fulfill their allocated quotas, for the Thompson represented another day where American soldiers might confront critical shortages of essential close-quarters combat weapons on the battlefield. We invite you to stay with us and watch the conclusion of this video. Your like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and your thoughts on the subject matter discussed. As the familiar contours of GM's Inland Division emerged under the diffused glow of Dayton streetlights, Hyde found himself at a critical juncture, facing a momentous decision poised to define both his professional legacy and the future direction of American small arms doctrine. He could either undertake a comprehensive redesign of his weapon to placate the entrenched preferences of military traditionalists, or he could resolutely commit to providing American soldiers with the indispensable tools necessary for their survival, irrespective of institutional biases. The Thompson's inherent beauty, paradoxically, was proving as lethal to its practical utility as any enemy fire, and Hyde possessed the conceptual framework for its unpretentious, yet supremely effective, successor. Hyde recommitted himself to his drafting table, armed with a groundbreaking realization that promised to fundamentally reshape American small arms philosophy. What if an unrefined appearance was, in fact, an advantage? The initial rejection at Aberdeen had undoubtedly stung, yet it had also served to crystallize a fundamental, exploitable truth about military procurement that Hyde's analytical engineering mind could now leverage. The Army's aesthetic prejudices were effectively blinding them to the undeniable superiority of functional design. If he could not engineer a weapon that conformed to traditional visual standards, he was determined to make it so unequivocally effective that its external appearance would become utterly irrelevant. Collaborating closely with Frederick Sampson, General Motors' esteemed chief engineer and a recognized master of large-scale automotive manufacturing, Hyde embarked upon a systematic deconstruction of every element the military conventionally deemed indispensable in submachine gun design. Sampson contributed 3 decades of invaluable experience in transforming raw steel into robust and dependable automotive components, possessing an intuitive understanding that true elegance in manufacturing lay in the ruthless elimination of anything that did not directly contribute to core functionality. Where traditional firearms manufacturers perceived intricate craftsmanship, Sampson discerned wasteful inefficiency. The resulting new prototype, officially designated the T-20, emerged from their collaborative efforts as an even more radical departure from established military convention. Hyde meticulously stripped away every single element that served a purely decorative purpose, retaining only those components that directly enhanced its effectiveness in combat scenarios. The final product, by conventional standards, presented a crude or unpolished appearance, yet it represented a profound masterpiece of functional engineering. It would soon acquire the defining nickname that cemented its legacy, the grease gun, so called due to its striking resemblance to a common automotive lubrication tool. The receiver design encapsulated the essence of Hyde's revolutionary thinking, in stark contrast to the Thompson's approach, which involved machining a solid block of steel, a process demanding highly skilled machinists and costly, specialized equipment. The T-20 utilized two pressed steel clamshell halves, expertly welded together along their seams. Each half of the receiver could be rapidly stamped from sheet steel in mere seconds, employing existing automotive press tools. The welding technique, a process meticulously refined for automobile body construction, produced joints that were demonstrably stronger than those achieved by traditional methods, while simultaneously eliminating hours of painstaking fitting and finishing. The total manufacturing cost for the complete receiver assembly plummeted to $2.50, a stark comparison to the $15 required for the Thompson's machined equivalent. The stock represented yet another triumph of pure function over extraneous form, where the Thompson featured meticulously fitted walnut, necessitating seasoned timber, precise machining, and labor-intensive hand finishing. The T-20 incorporated a telescoping wire-frame design that could collapse from an extended length of 8 inches to a compact 8 inches. This innovative design not only negated the need for expensive materials, but also provided significantly superior portability, a crucial advantage for tank crews and paratroopers who required compact weapons within the confines of their operational spaces. The manufacturing cost for this component was a mere 30 cents per unit, dramatically less than the $8 required for Thompson's wooden stocks. Perhaps Hyde's most controversial yet brilliant innovation was the dust cover safety system. This mechanism elegantly simplified the Thompson's complex mechanical safeties. Merely flipping the cover open prepared the weapon for firing, while closing it engaged the safety. This ingenious design not only protected the weapon's delicate internal components from environmental ingress, but also ensured foolproof operation, preventing accidental disengagement even under the most extreme combat stress. While traditional ordnance officers perceived this as an unsophisticated oversimplification, Hyde profoundly understood that ultimate combat effectiveness decisively outweighed intricate mechanical sophistication. The design of the bolt profoundly illustrated Hyde's deep understanding of the practical requirements of infantry combat. The T-20's heavier bolt cycled at a deliberate rate of 450 rounds per minute, a significant contrast to the Thompson's rapid-fire rate exceeding 700 rounds per minute. While military traditionalists initially interpreted this slower rate as a clear indicator of inferior performance, Hyde, having meticulously analyzed after-action reports from both the North African and Pacific theaters, unearthed a crucial operational truth. A lower cyclic rate translated directly into more efficient ammunition conservation and vastly superior controllability during sustained bursts of fire. American soldiers, he realized, were often wasting valuable Thompson ammunition due to excessive cyclic rates that rendered accurate, controlled fire almost an impossibility. The fully enclosed action represented, arguably, Hyde's most prescient and forward-thinking innovation. Unlike the Thompson's exposed operating mechanism, The T-20's bolt and springs remained entirely encased within the receiver. This critical design feature meant that dirt, mud, sand, and moisture, the ubiquitous and relentless adversaries of the infantry soldier, could not penetrate the weapon's action to cause debilitating jams. This singular design choice would ultimately prove decisive in ensuring the weapon's reliability across vastly different and demanding combat environments, from the rugged mountainous passes of Italy to the dense, humid jungle warfare of the Pacific. The context of military engagements in the Pacific jungles underscored the critical need for reliable weaponry. During December of 1942, comprehensive evaluations conducted at the Aberdeen Proving Ground yielded unequivocal performance metrics for the T-20 submachine gun, which undeniably surpassed any preconceived notions based purely on its appearance. For instance, in meticulously controlled trials simulating the arduous conditions of infantry combat within muddy terrains, the venerable Thompson submachine gun frequently experienced malfunctions, particularly after discharging approximately 50 rounds, necessitating immediate and often inconvenient field maintenance to regain operational capability. Conversely, the innovative T-20 demonstrated remarkable resilience, successfully firing a substantial 200 rounds without a solitary jam or interruption, largely due to its ingeniously enclosed action, which proved remarkably resistant to environmental factors that routinely crippled more conventional weapon designs. Further exhaustive evaluations involving sandy environments brought to light even more pronounced disparities in operational performance. Under simulated desert conditions, the Thompson submachine gun, for example, mandated thorough cleaning after every 100 rounds fired, a statistic that alarmingly corroborated first-hand accounts from American troops engaged in the challenging North African campaigns, where the dependability of their firearms was a persistent concern amidst severe environmental stressors. In stark contrast, the T-20 admirably sustained continuous firing for an impressive 500 rounds, without requiring any intermediate upkeep. Its straightforward blowback system and fully protected mechanical components consistently outperforming the Thompson's more intricate, yet demonstrably more susceptible construction. The ultimate confirmation of Hyde's innovative design philosophy emerged from rigorous cold weather assessments. When subjected to temperatures mirroring the severe European winter climate, the Thompson's numerous springs and elaborate internal workings began to falter as lubricating agents congealed and metallic components underwent contraction. Yet, the T-20, characterized by its significantly reduced number of moving parts and streamlined operational mechanism, maintained its dependable functionality without issue, foreshadowing its crucial and effective deployment during the pivotal Battle of the Bulge. We sincerely encourage you to remain with us and continue watching the remainder of this insightful video. Your support, through a like and subscription, would be immensely appreciated. Please also consider sharing your thoughts in the comments below, letting us know where you are watching from and what your perspective is on this compelling topic. The statistical evidence concerning reliability was nothing short of compelling and unequivocal. Across the entire spectrum of environmental challenges and exhaustive testing scenarios, the T-20 consistently demonstrated an exceptional 99.7% operational function rate. This figure stood in stark contrast to the Thompson's considerably lower 86.3% performance under the exact same rigorous conditions. It became abundantly clear that this unconventional-looking firearm was not merely a more economical alternative, it was demonstrably and significantly more dependable. A critical factor when the very survival of American servicemen hinged upon the flawless operation of their issued weaponry in the crucible of combat. Marking a significant turning point on Christmas Eve of 1942, the Ordnance Department formally endorsed the adoption of Hyde's innovative T-20, designating it as the United States submachine gun caliber. 45 M3. The definitive cost analysis unequivocally validated every facet of Hyde's unconventional methodology. The basic firearm itself cost a mere $18.36, with an additional $2, 58 allocated for the bolt assembly. This brought the grand total manufacturing expenditure to an astounding $20.94, a figure representing less than half the production cost of even the streamlined Thompson, all while simultaneously exhibiting unparalleled reliability across every conceivable performance criterion. This pivotal recommendation transcended mere fiscal prudence. It heralded a profound metamorphosis in American military philosophy, transitioning from an entrenched appreciation for traditional aesthetics to an embrace of unyielding functional pragmatism. Hyde's unadorned weapon had conclusively demonstrated that genuine combat effectiveness, rather than superficial elegance, ought to be the paramount consideration in weapon procurement. The subsequent challenge was to ascertain whether American soldiers would readily accept a weapon that, despite its utilitarian appearance resembling a common automotive implement, nonetheless delivered the performance of the most dependable submachine gun ever conceived. For the preceding 10 years, the General Motors Guide Lamp Division, situated in Anderson, Indiana, had dedicated its considerable expertise to refining the intricate process of fabricating automobile headlights. Their expansive factory floor resonated with the harmonious and precise orchestration characteristic of advanced automotive mass production techniques. However, by January 1943, that very same manufacturing facility was in the throes of undergoing the most monumental industrial metamorphosis in the annals of the company's existence. As skilled engineers meticulously reconfigured and adapted the existing assembly lines to commence the large-scale production of instruments of war. This remarkable pivot from the creation of lighting devices to the fabrication of armaments served as irrefutable evidence that American manufacturing prowess possessed an astonishing capacity for rapid adaptation and innovation, particularly when the very survival of the nation hung precariously in the balance. The inherent design of the M3 submachine gun truly embodied a revolutionary leap in manufacturing methodology, unequivocally affirming every fundamental principle that Frederick Sampson had assimilated over his extensive 3-decade career in automotive production. In stark contrast to the Thompson, which necessitated 21 individually machined parts, each requiring the meticulous attention of highly skilled artisans and the deployment of costly specialized precision machinery, the M3 required a mere 3 machined components. Virtually every other constituent element of the weapon could be efficiently produced through processes such as stamping, pressing, welding, or forming, utilizing readily available automotive tools and established techniques. For instance, the receiver unit was fabricated employing the identical spot welding methods commonly utilized in the construction of automobile bodies, a technique that yielded connections demonstrably stronger and more uniform than those achieved through conventional gunsmithing practices. simultaneously obviating countless hours of labor-intensive hand-fitting and meticulous finishing. The innovative design of the magazine served as a quintessential illustration of the weapon's overarching manufacturing philosophy. Magazines for the Thompson submachine gun demanded intricate machining, adherence to exacting tolerances, and the expertise of skilled assemblers, rendering each individual unit both prohibitively expensive and remarkably time-consuming to fabricate. Conversely, the M3 magazine was ingeniously crafted from sheet metal, utilizing pre-existing press tools. Its critical dimensions were precisely dictated by the stamping dies themselves, thereby removing reliance on the variable skill of individual craftsmen. Furthermore, the crucial feeding lips, responsible for guiding cartridges seamlessly into the chamber, were integrally formed during the initial pressing operation, thus eliminating the laborious hand-filing process that was a mandatory step for Thompson magazines. This streamlined approach resulted in a dramatic reduction in manufacturing time per magazine, plummeting from an estimated 45 minutes to a remarkably efficient duration of less than 3 minutes. Even the sighting mechanisms of the M3 exemplified a groundbreaking approach to the principles of mass production. Traditional Thompson sights necessitated intricate machining, meticulous adjustment procedures, and individual zeroing during the assembly phase. In stark contrast, the M3 incorporated straightforward sights fabricated from stamped metal, which were subsequently drilled to their precise final specifications during the initial test firing process. This ingenious method enabled each weapon to be rapidly and accurately zeroed without the need for costly and time-consuming individual fitting. The front sight comprised a simple stamped post, while the rear sight consisted of a stamped aperture, an undeniably rudimentary appearance, yet functionally superior to more complex designs that invariably demanded painstaking adjustment and frequent, often inconvenient, maintenance. The astonishing production metrics emanating from the Anderson facility fundamentally challenged and ultimately shattered every preconceived notion regarding weapons manufacturing capabilities. The guide lamp division possessed the capacity to fabricate an impressive $1,000 M3 submachine guns daily, a figure that dwarfed the output of traditional firearms facilities, which could only produce approximately 50 Thompsons within the same time frame. Furthermore, the remarkably short setup time required to transition production from automobile headlights to submachine guns was precisely 30 minutes, unequivocally showcasing the inherent versatility and adaptability afforded by automotive-style tooling and methodologies. Concurrently, the duration of worker training was drastically reduced, plummeting from 6 months for Thompson production to a mere 2 weeks for M3 assembly, primarily because the existing workforce, accustomed to automotive manufacturing, already possessed a foundational understanding of essential techniques such as stamping, welding, and assembly line operations. The optimized utilization of raw materials constituted yet another resounding triumph of the M3's efficient design philosophy. Each M3 submachine gun necessitated a mere 5 pounds of steel, a stark contrast to the substantial 8. 5 pounds required for a single Thompson, a critically important factor given that the United States was simultaneously engaged in the monumental undertaking of constructing the world's most formidable Navy, Air Force, and mechanized army. This significant reduction in material consumption was not achieved at the expense of structural integrity or through the implementation of weaker construction. Rather, it was the direct result of brilliant engineering, that judiciously eliminated superfluous strength while rigorously preserving the weapon's essential functional robustness. Comprehensive stress analysis conclusively demonstrated that the M3's stamped receiver, despite its lighter weight, was in fact inherently stronger than the Thompson's more heavily machined counterpart in vital structural zones. Significantly less. The inaugural M3 submachine gun, a testament to American ingenuity and manufacturing prowess, emerged from the Anderson assembly line on May 7, 1943. This pivotal moment arrived precisely 7 months and 3 weeks after Hyde's initial directive, signifying a profound vindication of the nation's industrial capacity that extended far beyond mere economic efficiencies. Frederick Sampson, a keen observer and an accomplished engineer, witnessed the production of this initial weapon with a deep sense of accomplishment. He had successfully demonstrated that modern automotive manufacturing techniques could yield military ordnance not only superior to traditionally crafted armaments, but also produced at a mere fraction of the cost associated with conventional methods. This represented a paradigm shift in how military hardware could be conceived and brought into existence. However, this revolutionary approach to mass production was soon to collide with the entrenched, immutable force of military institutional culture. As the initial consignments of M3 submachine guns made their way to various training encampments during the summer of 1943, the response from both the rank-and-file soldiers and their commanding officers was unequivocally frigid. Decades of ingrained assumptions about the quintessential appearance and feel of authentic military weaponry had shaped their expectations. The stark contrast with the iconic Thompson submachine gun was particularly jarring. Where service members anticipated the tactile elegance of polished wood and the robust precision of machined steel, they were instead presented with rudimentary stamped metal components and visible spot welds that, by comparison, appeared distinctly unsophisticated and crude. Staff Sergeant William Morrison, stationed at Fort Benning's esteemed infantry school, perfectly encapsulated this widespread sentiment in his training report, articulating the common perception. It feels cheap in your hands. Looks like something you'd find in a garage, not an armory. The boys are calling it the grease gun, and not as a compliment. We invite you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The unflattering moniker, grease gun, quickly became cemented in military parlance, serving as a dual reflection of the weapon's unadorned, utilitarian aesthetic and the deep-seated skepticism it engendered among the troops. These soldiers, conditioned by tradition, invariably equated the perceived quality of a weapon with the meticulousness of its traditional craftsmanship. Concurrently, the senior echelons of the Army brass echoed their subordinates' aesthetic misgivings, while also harboring more profound institutional apprehensions regarding the replacement of such an emblematic weapon with what appeared to be a hastily mass-produced substitute. Colonel James Harrison, the esteemed chief of small arms training at the infantry school, eloquently articulated this prevalent sentiment in his formal report dispatched to the War Department. He cautioned, "The M3 may function adequately, but it fails to inspire confidence in our soldiers. Military effectiveness depends not merely on mechanical function, but on the warrior's faith in his weapons. This stamped metal substitute undermines that crucial psychological element." The critique of the M3 transcended mere superficial appearance, delving into its performance characteristics, which themselves mirrored fundamental divergences in design philosophy. The M3's cyclic rate of 450 rounds per minute was a consistent point of contention, frequently lambasted as sluggish when juxtaposed with the Thompson's rapid 700-plus rounds per minute. This criticism persisted, despite Hyde's deliberate engineering choice to prioritize enhanced controllability and more efficient ammunition conservation. The weapon's wire stock, though demonstrably lighter and more compact than its wooden counterparts, was summarily dismissed as flimsy and insubstantial. Similarly, the straightforward safety mechanism, designed for superior reliability and intuitive operation compared to more complex mechanical systems, was nevertheless characterized as crude and unsophisticated. Training officers frequently voiced their frustration, noting that soldiers required extensive additional instruction to overcome their initial reluctance and cultivate trust in the M3's unconventional design. Paradoxically, range reports consistently indicated that troops achieved greater accuracy with the M3, a direct consequence of its superior controllability. However, many attributed this improved performance to extraneous factors, stubbornly refusing to acknowledge the inherent advantages of the weapon itself. The formidable psychological barrier erected by the M3's appearance was proving far more challenging to surmount than the technical hurdles Hyde had masterfully overcome through his superior engineering. This institutional resistance escalated to a critical point when several high-ranking officers formally petitioned for the resumption of Thompson production, arguing it was essential to uphold American military standards and morale. Their arguments were primarily anchored in concerns for soldier morale, the enduring prestige associated with military weaponry, and the myriad intangible factors that collectively contribute to overall military effectiveness, extending beyond mere mechanical functionality. The ugly gun, which had so effectively resolved America's pressing production crisis, now faced the daunting prospect of rejection by the very institution it was designed to serve. This created a profound crisis of confidence, threatening to derail the entire program just as American forces stood on the precipice of initiating the largest amphibious operations ever conceived in military history. The ultimate vindication of the M3, however, did not materialize within the controlled confines of training camps. Instead, it emerged from the unforgiving crucible of actual combat, where superficial aesthetic prejudices rapidly dissipated under the relentless pressure of life or death functionality. By the mid-1944 period, American forces were unequivocally discovering that Hyde's unpretentious weapon possessed intrinsic qualities that no amount of traditional craftsmanship could replicate. Battlefield conditions, with their brutal clarity, relentlessly separated theoretical performance from practical, real-world effectiveness. Tank crews were among the first to wholeheartedly embrace the M3's revolutionary design. Their burgeoning enthusiasm was born from an intimate familiarity with the cramped, confined fighting compartments of their vehicles, where every precious inch of space held critical importance. The Thompson's extended length of 32 inches, with its stock deployed, rendered maneuvering inside Sherman and Stuart tanks a perpetual struggle, particularly when crews needed to engage enemy infantry at close quarters during intense urban combat. In stark contrast, the M3's extended length of 29 88 inches provided crucial advantages in these confined environments, while its ability to telescope to a mere 22. 8 inches made both storage and rapid deployment significantly more manageable. Staff Sergeant Robert Hayes, who commanded an M4 Sherman during the arduous Italian campaign, meticulously documented these practical differences in his after-action report following the fierce fighting around Monte Battaglia. He vividly recounted, "You try swinging a Thompson around inside a tank turret when Jerry infantry gets close. The grease gun fits where the Tommy won't go. Had to engage German soldiers at point-blank range yesterday. The M3 let me get my weapon up and firing while my loader was still wrestling his Thompson into position." The differential in weight also proved to be profoundly significant during protracted military operations, weighing in at a mere 8. 2 pounds compared to the Thompson's substantial 10-plus pounds, the M3 considerably reduced fatigue during extended patrols and prolonged engagements. Paratroopers, who painstakingly carried every ounce of their equipment on their backs through harrowing combat jumps, quickly calculated that a 2-pound weight saving per weapon, when multiplied across an entire unit, translated into substantial tactical advantages. The official equipment report from the 82nd Airborne Division, following Operation Market Garden, notably highlighted that M3-equipped squads could carry additional ammunition and vital medical supplies that their Thompson-equipped counterparts simply could not manage. While some military formations found other weapons unmanageable, it was the Pacific Theater that offered the M3's most compelling vindication. In this challenging environment, where conventional armaments faltered, the superior ingenuity inherent in Hyde's design truly shone. The oppressive humidity and ceaseless moisture of New Guinea, for instance, created an insurmountable maintenance predicament for weaponry, a struggle acutely felt by units equipped with the Thompson submachine gun. The Thompson's exposed operational mechanism necessitated diligent daily cleaning to avert corrosive damage and operational stoppages, a luxury seldom afforded during protracted jungle engagements, where sudden encounters with Japanese forces were a constant, unpredictable threat. The relentless damp conditions permeated everything, making the intricate upkeep of such firearms a logistical nightmare for soldiers already facing perilous combat scenarios. Marine Corporal Anthony Ritchie's vivid combat journal, penned amidst the brutal fighting on Bougainville, starkly illuminated the critical importance of weapon reliability in such tropical climes. He recounted a grim reality. Day 2. Thompson started jamming every few rounds. Humidity gets into everything out here. Picked up a grease gun from wounded GI. The thing kept firing no matter what I threw at it. Went 3 weeks, 800 rounds. Never cleaned it once, never jammed. Not even when I dropped it in a stream during that night patrol. The M3's fully enclosed action, initially dismissed by Aberdeen Proving Ground officers as unsophisticated, proved to be the decisive engineering advantage in environments where traditional designs consistently failed. The M3's bolt and springs remained hermetically shielded from the pervasive moisture, fine dirt, and various debris that invariably infiltrated the more intricate Thompson mechanisms. Even with meticulous maintenance efforts, field dispatches originating from Pacific operations consistently reported the M3 maintaining reliability rates exceeding 95%, a stark contrast to Thompson rates, which frequently plummeted below 70% during extensive periods of jungle warfare. The European theater provided further crucial validation during the extraordinarily harsh winter of 1944–45, particularly during the ferocious Battle of the Bulge. This period subjected American weaponry to extreme cold, unequivocally exposing fundamental disparities in design philosophy between conventional and innovative approaches. Sub-zero temperatures, plummeting far below freezing, caused Thompson mechanisms to freeze solid, rendering these firearms completely inoperable at the most critical junctures, precisely when German forces unleashed unexpected and devastating assaults against American positions. Private First Class Michael Sullivan, serving with the 2nd Infantry Division, eloquently documented the grim reality of winter combat in a heartfelt letter dispatched home. December 23rd. Temperature dropped to 15 below zero. Jerry came at us before dawn. Johnson's Thompson froze solid, couldn't even pull the bolt back. My grease gun kept chattering like it was summer in Georgia. That ugly gun saved our whole squad that morning. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The M3's elegantly simple blowback action, characterized by its minimal number of moving components, demonstrated an inherent superiority in these severe weather conditions. While the Thompson's more intricate mechanism demanded precise operational tolerances easily compromised by the biting cold, the M3's rugged construction and straightforward operational principles ensured its continued, dependable functioning. The M3's substantial bolt, which detractors had initially disparaged as ponderous, paradoxically delivered exceptional performance in sub-zero temperatures. Its considerable mass maintained sufficient kinetic energy to reliably cycle the action, even when lighter, more delicate mechanisms seized. German intelligence reports, meticulously gathered during the Ardennes offensive, specifically identified American units equipped with the M3 as high-priority targets, a clear acknowledgement of the weapon's formidable effectiveness in close-quarters winter combat. Wehrmacht after-action assessments frequently observed American grease gun most dangerous in bunker-clearing operations, simple, reliable, always functional, even in extreme cold when other weapons fail. A profound psychological shift among American servicemen, developed in parallel with the weapon's undeniable tactical vindication, initial skepticism regarding the M3's rather utilitarian appearance, gradually yielded to a deep, if sometimes grudging, respect as soldiers personally discovered that its unglamorous exterior concealed genuinely superior battlefield performance. The informal moniker grease gun transformed from an initial term of derision into an affectionate nickname, signifying the growing trust troops placed in Hyde's innovative design philosophy. Technical Sergeant David Chen, a seasoned veteran of both the Italian and French campaigns, perfectly encapsulated this evolving sentiment in his unit's historical record. Started calling it the grease gun as a joke, looked like something from a garage, not an armory. But after 6 months of combat, that garage tool brought more of us home than any pretty gun ever could. Function over form. That's what keeps you alive. Yet, just as extensive field validation was unequivocally establishing the M3's combat supremacy, an unforeseen calamity threatened the program from an entirely unexpected quarter. Quality control deficiencies began to surface in early 1945, a direct consequence of the rapid expansion of production capabilities, which inadvertently compromised the stringent manufacturing standards that had initially guaranteed the weapon's reliability. Some M3s were found to possess weak recoil springs, leading to persistent feeding malfunctions, while others experienced problematic bolt breakage during sustained firing sequences. Critics, who had harbored strong opposition to the M3 program from its inception, eagerly seized upon these nascent failures as unequivocal confirmation of their pre-existing aesthetic and institutional biases. This burgeoning crisis gravely jeopardized the entirety of Hyde's achievements, threatening to dismantle everything accomplished through superior engineering and irrefutable battlefield validation. Directives were subsequently issued to cease M3 production and revert to the manufacturing of the Thompson submachine gun. Despite the overwhelming body of combat evidence unequivocally favoring the newer M3 design, Hyde's revolutionary weapon confronted the very real prospect of cancellation. This occurred precisely at the moment its combat superiority had become undeniable, thereby igniting a profound bureaucratic crisis. This pivotal moment would ultimately determine whether American small arms doctrine would embrace forward-thinking functional innovation or regress into traditional modes of thought that regrettably prioritized superficial appearance over genuine combat effectiveness. The intelligence that reached Hyde's office in Dayton during February 1945 carried a devastating, almost poetic irony, perfectly encapsulating the entire M3 narrative. The final Thompson submachine gun had just rolled off Savage Arms' production line, signaling the definitive end to the manufacture of America's most iconic individual firearm. This cessation was not due to its operational obsolescence, but rather to its economic impracticality. Having produced an astonishing 1.5 million Thompsons, the aesthetically pleasing weapon had, in essence, priced itself out of existence, falling victim to the very same intense cost pressures that had originally spurred Hyde's groundbreaking design. The Thompson's discontinuation consequently created a strategic void in the military's arsenal, a gap that only the M3 was capable of adequately filling. However, the emergent quality control issues now critically threatened to dismantle the M3 program, even as its absolute necessity became undeniable. Hyde, collaborating closely with Frederick Sampson, embarked upon a meticulously urgent endeavor to pinpoint and rectify the production flaws that critics were actively exploiting to undermine the entire M3 project. Their thorough investigation ultimately revealed that the swift expansion of manufacturing facilities had inadvertently compromised the precise steel specifications and the critical spring tensions essential for the weapon's inherent reliability. The ultimate resolution ingeniously embodied the very same engineering philosophy that had originally given birth to the M3 itself, the application of elegant simplicity to inherently complex challenges. By implementing superior steel specifications, they effectively eliminated the recurring bolt breakage issues, while a revision of spring tension successfully resolved the feeding problems that had plagued some units in the field. The enhanced M3A1 model, introduced to military service in December 1944, meticulously addressed every valid criticism leveled against its predecessor, all while successfully retaining the inherent cost-effectiveness and manufacturing efficiencies that had initially facilitated its widespread mass production. The most immediately discernible alteration involved the replacement of the notoriously fragile cocking handle with a straightforward finger aperture integrated directly into the bolt mechanism, thus eliminating the component most susceptible to damage during rigorous field operations. Furthermore, a significantly more robust rear sight was incorporated, which not only enhanced the weapon's inherent accuracy potential, but also remained perfectly adaptable to existing automotive manufacturing techniques, ensuring continued ease of production. Crucially, the implementation of stringent quality control protocols served to eradicate the inconsistent manufacturing standards that had previously contributed to reliability issues observed in various production batches, ensuring a higher degree of uniformity and operational dependability across all units. By the cessation of hostilities, the empirical validation of George Hyde's unconventional engineering approach was utterly overwhelming and unequivocally undeniable. The cumulative production of the M3 reached an impressive total of 66,694 units, a volume that translated into colossal cost savings exceeding $150 million. When compared to the expenditures required for manufacturing an equivalent quantity of Thompson submachine guns. Moreover, the weapon's reliability rate, rigorously assessed during final testing phases, ascended to an astonishing 99.7%, a figure that dramatically surpassed even Hyde's most optimistic initial projections. This remarkable performance cemented the reputation of a firearm that had once been widely dismissed as crude and inherently unreliable, proving it to be demonstrably more dependable than any other submachine gun ever adopted into American military service. However, the definitive and ultimate vindication of the M3's design philosophy manifested profoundly during the unforgiving crucible of the Korean War. In this brutal conflict, the extreme frozen conditions, which rendered countless other armaments inoperable, unequivocally exposed the fundamental superiority of Hyde's pragmatic design principles. The war thus served as the conclusive examination in the protracted debate between pure function and aesthetic form that had perpetually encircled the weapon since its initial introduction. Under such relentless environmental pressures, all superficial aesthetic considerations were stripped away, leaving only the stark, unadorned truth of its pure, mechanical effectiveness. We ask you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. What do you think about the video topic? Leave a comment about where you are from and what you think. Private Bob Shine, serving with the 2nd Infantry Division, personally experienced the M3's unparalleled performance in the severe winter conditions during the perilous retreat from Seoul in January 1951. His unit found itself engaged in desperate combat against formidable Chinese forces amidst sub-zero temperatures, where the reliability of a weapon transitioned from a mere preference to an absolute matter of life and death survival. I absolutely detested that gun when they first issued it to me at Fort Lewis, Shine later recounted, recalling his initial impressions. It appeared utterly worthless when contrasted with the elegant Thompson submachine guns the soldiers carried in the movies. But when we engaged those Chinese positions at Wanju, my grease gun discharged every single round flawlessly. My comrade beside me, armed with a Thompson, suffered a jam after barely 10 shots. That unsightly firearm, in its sheer dependability, ultimately brought me home alive. After-action reports, meticulously compiled by the Chinese People's Volunteer Army, which were subsequently captured during their spring offensive, specifically highlighted and targeted American soldiers equipped with M3s. These reports explicitly acknowledged the weapon's exceptional effectiveness in the intense, close-quarters combat that characterized a significant portion of the Korean conflict. Communist intelligence assessments, further noted the M3's unwavering operational reliability, particularly in environmental conditions, that rendered other small arms completely ineffective, consequently identifying M3-equipped units as priority threats during their infantry assaults. A profound transformation in American military opinion directly paralleled the weapon's incontrovertible combat vindication. What had initially commenced as widespread institutional derision gradually evolved into a deep-seated professional respect, as officers who had initially criticized the M3's unconventional appearance learned to unequivocally value its undeniable effectiveness on the battlefield. By 1953, even the most staunchly traditional military voices reluctantly conceded that Hyde's ugly gun had unequivocally proven itself to be significantly more reliable than the aesthetically pleasing Thompson submachine gun it had been designed to replace. The fundamental principle that Hyde had so patiently established through his engineering excellence subsequently became an entrenched doctrine, profoundly influencing American military procurement strategies for many decades to follow. Function unequivocally trumps form. A design that is good enough, but engineered correctly, will invariably outperform one that is perfect, but engineered incorrectly. Effectiveness, rather than mere elegance, is the sole determinant of appropriate weapon selection. These profound concepts, which were considered genuinely revolutionary when Hyde first proposed them, gradually transmuted into accepted wisdom that guided nearly every aspect of military hardware development, ranging from the most basic small arms to the most complex major weapon systems. George Hyde passed away in 1963, yet his pioneering and revolutionary design remained an active component within American military service, a testament to its enduring quality, having outlasted both the early critics who had dismissed it and the superficial aesthetic prejudices that had initially opposed its adoption. The M3 continued its dedicated service through the Korean War, the protracted conflict in Vietnam, and beyond, meticulously accumulating an impressive service record that comprehensively vindicated every single aspect of Hyde's original design philosophy. This extensive operational history powerfully demonstrated the enduring value of engineering pragmatism when pitted against institutional traditionalism. The weapon's profound legacy extended far beyond its immediate battlefield utility, ultimately encompassing a fundamental and pervasive shift in American strategic thinking regarding military effectiveness. The grease gun unequivocally proved that genuine innovation often appears aesthetically unappealing to eyes that have been trained on conventional beauty, that truly revolutionary solutions frequently violate established expectations and norms, and that authentic military effectiveness is derived from weapons that perform flawlessly when all other equipment fails, rather than from armaments that merely look impressive during peacetime demonstrations or parades. The concluding chapter of the M3's remarkable story unveiled a profound and illuminating truth about the very essence of American character and its inherent capabilities. The nation that had initially rejected Hyde's design, primarily because it appeared crude and unrefined, eventually embraced it wholeheartedly because it consistently functioned with unwavering reliability. The aesthetic prejudices and preconceived notions that had nearly led to the program's demise ultimately gave way to a practical and undeniable recognition of superior engineering. The ugly gun, which had been initially dismissed as utterly unworthy of American soldiers, ultimately transformed into the most reliable submachine gun within their entire arsenal. For the countless GIs who carried and depended upon M3s throughout 3 major wars, the weapon's outward appearance became entirely irrelevant when compared to its paramount dependability. They internalized the crucial lesson that true beauty in military equipment is not found in polished surfaces or traditional craftsmanship, but rather in consistent, flawless function when human lives hang precariously in the balance. The grease gun's unpretentious and utilitarian design epitomized American ingenuity at its absolute finest. The remarkable ability to strip away every non-essential element while meticulously preserving everything that truly matters. In the final analysis, George Hyde's unassuming ugly gun imparted a profound lesson to America, that the most beautiful and effective solution is invariably the one that works flawlessly when everything else fails to perform. The fundamental principle he established through patient, meticulous engineering and subsequent undeniable battlefield validation became a cornerstone of American military doctrine. Effectiveness, rather than mere outward appearance, is the true determinant of genuine worth. The M3 grease gun definitively proved that sometimes the most revolutionary act lies in making something simple enough to work perfectly and consistently every single time, especially when it matters most.